and welcome to another edition of Inside the Burrow, the FAU podcast for and by fans. My name is Dan, and I am joined as usual by Jack and Shane. And tonight we are going to go in greater detail than we did last Sunday about FAU's opponent this week, Western Kentucky. Western Kentucky is sitting atop. After the loss to Marshall, they are in second place in Conference USA. Very similar records. The same record. FAU and Western Kentucky both sitting at 5-3. Western Kentucky is 4-1 in the conference, with their only loss coming to Marshall. We talked a little bit about that last week. FAU 3-1 in conference with, as everyone knows, our lone loss to Marshall as well. So this is really a big game. Every game from here on out is going to be a big game. FAU, there's a lot to gain, and we'll see really from the outcome of this game, whether our season is going to be something special or just a good season, which all of us on this podcast kind of predicted to have a good to pretty good season. I don't think any of us really thought we'd be winning the conference, but here we are having a chance to do that. So FAU versus Western Kentucky this Saturday. Western Kentucky really kind of had a little bit of an up and down season, lost to an FCS team, Central Arkansas, to start off the season, pretty rough. Lost to Louisville and lost to Marshall. So, so I guess two decent losses. But, Shane, what do you think about Marshall? Western Kentucky's, some of their strengths. What do you think FAU has to do in this game to succeed?
Well, it's kind of hard for them to with just strengths. Their strength is they stay in every football game and just figure out a way to win it. I mean, if you kind of dive deep into their stats, nothing really stands out to you. Some of their defensive stats are great. D'Angelo Malone, who's the key to this game, and we'll talk about him a little bit, stopping him. But they're one of the worst in turnover margin. They have the third worst rushing offense. Their passing offense is middle of the pack in Conference USA. They haven't, outside of Louisville, they really haven't played any, Ohio State or UCF types to kind of throw some of those stats off. They've just won a lot of close games. The Old Dominion team that we just beat handily, even with our starting quarterback being out, in the second half, they only managed to score 20 points against. Charlotte, who has won, who's a much better team, but their defense has just been pretty bad this year. They scored 30 points on the dot, but 2 came off trick plays. They didn't break 400 yards for Charlotte. They kind of like these long, sustained 10-play drives. Their quarterback who came in, Ty Story, who's only started the last, 5 games for them, has just kind of done the game manager thing. Again, nothing really sticks out about them, but they just find way to win games by just staying in it defensively and just kind of getting over the hump and making the play they need to.
Shane, this Western Kentucky team reminds me a lot of a team that I think you would like. Very sound defensively. They find out ways to squeak games, pull games out of their teeth. I feel like this team's right up your alley while, enjoy the much more intricate, high-octane offenses. Their defense is really stout. You said that, and it's a joke. 18th in passing defense, 28th in rushing defense, 16th overall. To put that in perspective with some of FAU's previous opponents, Ohio State has number 2 overall defense in the nation. UCF, 31st. Old Dominion, which we talked about last week, has surprisingly really sound defense, 43rd. That worries me a bit. We're going to go into the injuries that we're seeing right now, but, who knows if the guys see action in Bowling Green, but if we're on our 4th, 5th, 6th string running back, I'm not sure if I'm going to have a lot of confidence in the team being able to put up a lot of points. Their offense doesn't really worry me, though, and that's something that we should be thankful for. Ty Story has made some strides, but I mean, 5 throwing touchdowns, but he doesn't make any mistakes. Just 2 picks. Very much like Jason Driscoll. How many times this year are we going to say game manager Jason Driscoll type of quarterback?
Yeah, but my only disagreement with that is they don't have. There's no one really on the edges that kind of have that game changing like Driscoll had. I mean, Driscoll, all he had to do is be a game manager.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That defense depended more on turnovers, like we said in 17. But I do think it's an advantage for us, and I think this game comes under our defense, right? They don't have a ton of a big play ability, and our defense's weakness this year has been giving up the big plays, whether we've had a broken coverage or poor whatever it is. I like our chances in saying, okay, go 10 plays versus us. And it's
several times.
Drive, you just got to make them make one mistake. A staff is going to put it out for them. An interception, obviously. Holding call. I'll say, okay, because their third down offense has actually been pretty good. So they kind of just know how to just stay on the field. I mean, Gage Walker, their starting running back, no one else other than the quarterback has more than 60 carries for them, is only averaging 91 yards a game. And so it just like 4.5 yards a carry. So he's kind of just a 20 carry back, 130 yards. And our third down defense has been good. So I challenge them to go 10 plays versus us. And kind of in order, and I'll bank on us making one play to kind of just make it too difficult for them to pick up a third down.
And I feel like that's been our MO this year. Yeah, we'll give up long drives, which we have done. But then, once the offense goes into the red zone, we're able to make a stop, or we're able to force a turnover. Hence why we have one of the best turnover ratios in the country, tied for the best turnover ratio in Conference USA. So I'm right there with you. Let them, and they will sustain drives, guys. I really think they will. I'm pretty high on Walker. 6 touchdowns, 4.7 yards per carry. I don't think that's really that much of a joke. I think they will get sustained long drives against us. As long as we're able to stop them at the end of the day, like you said, just force one mistake out of a 12-play drive, then I think we'll be okay.
Yeah, I mean, their receiving core, they do have a couple of receivers that can help with that. Lucky Jackson and Jacoyer Pearson, they each have 46 catches. There's a huge drop-off after that. So, it's kind of a dink and dunk. I don't know if I said this on the podcast last week, or it reminds us for older Dolphin fans of how, the Dolphins won under Ricky Williams without a real great back, or the Dave Wannstedt this year. Let's just, play the field position thing, put together a few nice long drives, keep the game close, and we'll see if our defense can win it for us in the end. And they've done that for the most part.
Yeah, I'm looking at because the seniors this year would be the kind of the last year of Jeff Brom. So for to go back a couple of years, Jeff Brom had great success before he moved on to Purdue. Then they hired Mike Sherman. Is that his name? For the past 3 years, and he Charlie Partridged it.
No, it wasn't Mike Sherman.
Well, I can't remember his name. He was Notre Dame's offensive coordinator. I'm pretty sure when he came in. But I'm looking at the depth chart now, and there's really not many. There's not. It's not a senior laden team. There's a lot of juniors, but kind of the high talented recruits that Jeff Brom was bringing in, I don't think are quite there. But your record is your record. They are 5-3. I did see a stat that said, that's what their record is, but that Western Kentucky potentially could not be bowl eligible because of their remaining schedule, which seems kind of crazy because they were way out in front of Conference USA, but they do have a pretty challenging schedule coming home, really starting with us. And I think it's going to be a tough game, but Western Kentucky is one of those teams. Is probably the the lone team outside of FIU that we are to Western Kentucky what Middle Tennessee or Marshall is to us, where for some reason we have their number. I think the overall record is 7-3. Yeah, where FAU's won 7 out of 3 times, or 7 out of 10 times. And there's been a couple games where we shouldn't have won. There's some memorable games like 20. We were just going over this 2014 when Quez led a big comeback and Trey Hendrickson had basically destroyed Brandon Dowdy. That was a pretty exciting game that we had. Jack mentioned the Keith Reeser interception to a lateral for a touchdown. That was a pretty exciting game, but we just kind of have Western's number. Hopefully we can continue that, but it's just Western is one of those teams that we just, for whatever reason, maybe we catch them at the right time of the year, things are clicking right. FAU has won the last 2 games, obviously 2017, and they've kind of been close outside of the debacle that was 2016, 52-0, I think it was. They've always been close games, and even the 2017 year when we were in Bowling Green and won, we did win by double digits, but it was late into the fourth quarter. Motor broke a big run, then I think Willie Wright had a catch at the end there. So I don't know. It certainly, I think we're relatively, at this time of year, even matched. We've got things that are wrong. They've got things that are wrong. We're better at some things. They're better at some things. I think that's kind of why we are sitting even in Conference USA, essentially.
Yeah, I wanted to say that the 2017 game, real quick, that I feel like that really turned that season around because we really didn't do anything special before then. And then late in the second half, we just took over and we didn't look back since then. Mike Stanford was their coach, Mike Stanford Jr., I thought it was a decent hire. He's, obviously got fired and he's now the offensive coordinator at Utah State. Tyson Helton, who was the offensive coordinator at Tennessee, you already mentioned, lost to Central Arkansas to start the season. But he's doing a decent job there. But this is a must-win for both teams. Whoever wins this game is still in the CUSA East hunt. Whoever loses this game is out. And for Western Kentucky, as you mentioned, Dan, and good job by that, it's a must-win because their schedule is very difficult after this. They play Arkansas on the road. Yeah, Arkansas isn't that good of an SEC team, but, still an SEC team. Then they're going to Hattiesburg to play Southern Miss, and then they have their rivalry, 100 miles of hate against Middle Tennessee. So definitely not an easy schedule for them after this. If they lose this game, it puts them in a corner. So we're going to have to expect an absolute dogfight from the Hilltoppers in conditions that FAU players aren't normally used to. And by that, I mean it's going to be cold. We talked about it a little bit earlier this week and last week. The temperatures are going to be in the mid-50s at kickoff at 3 p.m. Central Time, 4 p.m. Eastern, and they're just going to plummet. And it's going to suck. And I'm cold thinking about it. I don't know how you guys feel, but I really genuinely think it's a disadvantage. And Lane Kiffin said so on Tuesday that this is a challenge. That this is the exact quote he used is non-traditional weather for the players. 96 players on our roster are from Florida. I doubt most of them have ever seen snow before.
It's going to be I'm kind of not buying it. 55 degrees and then low 40s when you're playing football we're not going, this isn't the frozen tundra, that there's not going to be fog coming off the player's head. It actually sounds like really enjoyable football weather.
You're nuts.
You know what I mean?
You're nuts.
We're talking 40 degrees.
I think it would be, somewhat.
I promise you, every kid that's from Orlando on the football team probably played a state high school playoff game in the same temperature range.
I don't think it would be that fun as a fan, but again, once you get moving around, especially playing every down, they're gonna build up some heat. But I think
Yeah, but if it was like 25 and a little bit of snow, or like right at freezing and it was raining, but we also went up there and the weather had nothing to do with it. It was raining that game you guys talked about in 2017.
Yep.
This is supposed to be sunny, so almost kind of like a sweater weather game. But yeah, you talk about dogfighting stuff, and I mentioned D'Angelo Malone at the beginning here. He's the key to this game. I don't even care if he gets a couple of sacks. I mean, FAU we've shown we can manage third and long. The bigger concern is right now we do not know the status of half the running backs. There's questions, let's see how Chauncey Mason plays and Tyree Tisdale. I mean, we're talking fourth, fifth string running backs coming out of camp. Larry didn't play last week. I don't know if they've been practicing this week. It's hard to tell at FAU. But, man, is this a game where I would be okay with if their run defense is great and we don't have running backs, and we go back there and we just let Chris rip the ball 45 times?
Yeah.
Would anyone be okay with dying on that sword? Because I would be. I mean, there's part of me that says, okay, we got two great tight ends, okay? Mitchell's been kind of quiet the last few weeks. They haven't really had a ton to use him, but let's let Chris just kind of. I will take my chances at Chris throwing for 350 yards, 3 touchdowns, and we run for a modest 100 on the ground just when we need to, because they stop the runs. I mean, we're talking pass to set up the run type game.
I feel more comfortable with Chris certainly than last year with him this year. He's shown that he's capable of putting up those kind of numbers, being pretty consistent. Again, he kind of always has 1 or 2 throws a game where you're like, I don't know. But he's only turned the ball over a handful of times. And outside of getting sacked a bunch against Marshall, he's played a pretty solid year. You mentioned John Mitchell's been kind of quiet. We've had some good output from D'Angelo Antoine. He's kind of been a steadying force, even more than just jet sweeps. He tends to 1 or 2 plays a game, get open downfield somehow. And I mean, let's turn into an air raid offense here, and see what happens. And like you said, Larry didn't play at all last week, and he's got a high ankle sprain, and we talked about this earlier, but that's just the kind of injury that just lingers, and you think you're doing well, and you make a bad cut, and you're right back down to it. But that could have been by design that he didn't play and really give him 2 solid weeks. We're not, Larry, we don't need you. James Charles is going to be fine with what we've got. So, I've got trust in Lane. I think in the beginning of the year, I probably wouldn't have said that I've got the trust in Chris, but again, he's shown that he's capable of doing this. And also seems to be, he was injured, but he seems like he's going to be playing this week.
And so this is how we're thinking. I can't believe I'm saying this with FAU, that we're going to try and use the pass to set up the run when it's I feel like since Lane Kiffin has been here, it's always been the other way around.
It's 2019, baby.
Yeah.
I'm only saying, I'm not saying this is what's suggested or this is what our normal offense. This is just me saying, would you guys feel okay dying on that sword? Because it could very well, if we go out of our offense, if that run game's just not working and they decide we're going to just throw the ball, Chris could go out there and have a 3-pick game, and then everyone's going, throwing their hands up going, why didn't we run a normal offense?
I mean, it's because I don't really have a lot of confidence that we'll be able to run our normal offense with Malone and linebacker Kyle Bailey back there. We're going to give up sacks. We're not going to get a lot of yards on the ground. But what we're talking about, if that situation happens where we have to go out of our element and we can dive on that sword, that's if Chris starts. What if it's Tronte? Just hypothetical here, guys. What if it's Tronte and we know he's a run-first kind of guy and they're shutting down our run? Are we going to have that same situation? We're just like, well, yeah, just have him do an air raid, sling it out by the second quarter because nothing else is working.
Well, we better hope the defense scores.
Yeah, if that's the case, yeah.
I mean, they held Army to 8 points. So we're not running the triple option with Tronti essentially better than Army is doing it. And even Army struggled this year. They're not as good as a lot of people thought.
Surprising.
Chris did practice today. I mean, let's say Jake Elman was tweeting out. I mean, it's not a huge secret. I thought if he was going to maybe try and
milk it,
disguise a little bit more, but it was tweeted that he was practicing. Who knows what lingering injuries were there, but like, I would be super shocked if Tronti walks out there to start. Again, the bigger question is the running backs in the D-line that got banged up. It didn't seem any of the D-line was seriously hurt. That all seemed like kind of minor stuff. But, again, the running back situation is kind of in dire straits right now. I mean, and that was our deepest position. And, I mean, thanks that we did have deep, but, I mean, not deep enough. I mean,
yeah,
it's, and I'm just saying we're going to go out there and it's like a play that frustrated me in the first drive of the Old Dominion game. First play I think we picked up a couple first downs or even just one first down, and it was a 3rd and 3, and we ran like it was a outside zone read to the right side of the offensive line. And I was just kind of going, why? It's obviously right now right tackle's the issue. Marquise Robinson's been kind of beat up. BJ Etney's struggled there. Doug Johnston's been hurt. So, we're kind of right tackle's been kind of a swinging gate of players and literally of, how they're blocking this year. It's a tough situation. They put Humphrey in at both guard positions last week. There was even situations I noticed there's a couple of where Nick Weber I thought kind of struggled on some blocks, and Lane said this week you could see him at either guard position. So they're going to have a quick leash on it, but Western Kentucky has an ability to pass rush with 4, which really we haven't seen. UCF and Marshall killed us with blitzing. Okay, they really get to us with creative blitzes. Showing it late, us not being able to make proper calls at the line. This is just Ohio State got to us with 4, but they have a side.
At defensive end.
They got to us with 1. So it's going to be interesting. And I'm even curious if Western Kentucky tries to mix it up and bring some pressure, with us kind of anticipating it. So, I mean, we'll see. But like I said on Sunday, our A game is better than theirs. I mean, we're talking about Western Kentucky's defense. I still have a ton of belief in our defense just because how many plays they make all year. We lead the conference. I said this on Sunday in tackles for loss.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. We're up there in sacks. I think we're 2nd or 3rd in interceptions. Outside of the big plays, if we don't let any big plays, I don't see how this Western Kentucky team breaks 21 versus us.
It's just whether or not we're able to outscore them. I know it sounds stupid and mundane, but that's just the way it's going to be because I don't see them putting a lot of points against us, but I don't see us putting up a lot of points on them. That's it.
Well,
that defense line is so skillful, they don't need a blitz, and they'll put all their other guys in the backfield.
Tyson Helton said that this game's kind of a race to 30.
I can see that.
He said that after.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's right on.
And that's how kind of expect it to go.
Hopefully that the experience that we had with UCF and then kind of rehashing that with Marshall, where like you said, they just sent more guys than we could block, and hopefully that situation will benefit us here because coaches will be able to pick up on it, and get the right tight ends, get the right running backs into the game that are going to be best for blocking purposes. And again, it's the line came out opened at as FAU a 2-point underdog, but seems it's going to be a close game. I mean,
that's a pick 'em. I mean, that's just 2. That's I think NFL's 2 points, college is 3 points.
Yep.
for home and away. I saw the FPI, ESPN's or S&P, their S&P rankings have us winning by 1.5 points. It seems the computers like us, but the Vegas insiders like Western Kentucky. But I also wonder what that number is if they didn't come back versus Marshall.
Yeah.
That was a game dominated by Marshall for 3 quarters.
Yeah.
So it's kind of curious.
I thought it was interesting that the line actually moved to 3 for Western Kentucky a couple days ago, and as of Wednesday evening, it shifted to 1.5. I think as word of Chris practicing has kind of trickled out, the line is starting to move closer to FAU's favor a little bit.
If we're going to get into some real gambling talk, that's the people.
Yeah.
Betting the lineup, and then the sharps
realizing what's going on.
Yeah, coming down and taking the line for us. I mean, you'd have to go see like what percentage of the people, and then compared to what percentage of the money. If like 80% of the people is on Western Kentucky, but 50% of the money split, and the sharps are on FAU, which anyone who's listening who gambles, you always want the sharps on your side. They tend to be good at it.
What's the line for FAU winning the coin toss again? Because I'm about to bet my student loan debt on that. We've only lost that one once, I want to say.
Wow.
Yeah, just one time. I think it was to Marshall.
Oh,
surprised. No, maybe it was Marshall. Or was it last week? I can't remember. Last week to Old Dominion, whatever. So it'll be an interesting one, no doubt. I'm nervous. I don't know about you guys. I'm just. It's crazy how we're talking about week by week. This is the biggest game of the year. First we said that for Charlotte, then we said that for Middle Tennessee and Marshall, and it keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger as the season goes on. So yet again, biggest game of the year.
I will say I am glad we have this game is on the road. I'm just glad FAU didn't have to have a home game scheduled at the same time versus FSU in Miami and Florida, Georgia.
Yeah.
So it kind of worked out in our favor.
Yeah, that sucked.
We're going against them for TV ratings, but the diehard FAU fans will be watching.
Yeah. This game again is on ESPN Plus, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So hopefully we've got some better luck this week than we did last week.
And funny you mentioned it. Brendan Dowdy is actually on the analyst.
This has got to be their local network.
But that's just cool, though. Remember, he's a local cat,
right?
From Broward County.
Yeah.
Well,
I meant local to Western Kentucky.
Well, we kind of talked about it. So when ESPN Plus games are produced by the schools, so whoever the home school is kind of gets the announcer. Like Frank Fort calls our ESPN Plus games, which works for FAU. So,
but he's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, Frank Fort's Frank Fort's been doing sports in South Florida for 40 years. He's a class act.
Yeah.
But if you guys are listening to the game too, and there's a little homerism, I mean, that's just you're basically listening to their home radio call.
Just mute it and put on the tune-in radio, and you'll get Bartels and Levicka. So,
absolutely.
I did that last week, and they're both streamed, so there is some delay. But the radio, the TuneIn app was delayed a little bit more, so maybe you need to listen on an old-timey radio if you can dig one out of your dad's garage and tune into AM. So, should be a good game, and I like FAU's chances if Chris is healthy. I think we can plug enough in at running back. James Charles has stepped up, done what he's needed to. Certainly, he hasn't been as successful as Malcolm Davidson or Larry.
He had a good run last week, though.
Yeah, he's done. He's what you would want in a backup running back. The drop off isn't so horrendous that we're like, well, who are we going to hand the ball off to? So I feel confident in that.
I think all of our backs, Tisdale, all these guys are capable of big runs. It's more just like, who do we trust right now? It's like, okay, it's tight. Their coverage has been great. It's 3rd and 3. We need someone just to make one nice cut, put the pads down, and get the yard, or make the right read. Feel comfortable with the quarterback. We saw that when they put Tronti in. There was one time where the mesh point was kind of off. A lot of times that stuff's just all feeling. It's not just like once they hand the ball, is this guy fast and strong? A lot of it's kind of feeling what the quarterback's doing and knowing to delay it and being smart and letting the offensive linemen do their work and hitting the right hole. Larry's good at that. That's why he scored 6 touchdowns, and everything's in the red zone. So it's like in a game where first downs might be at a premium, converting a few more of those 3rd and 3 type plays without having to depend on getting the ball to Harris and Bryant would be important. But again, my hope is FEU offensively this week is just get enough big plays. All right, just a few huge plays this game. We might not be able to drive the ball consistently against them. Get a few big plays, get to 28 points with just a few big plays, and then cross your arms and say, defense, can you make enough to hold them under that?
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I mean, again, we have the offensive talent. We talked a little bit about Willie. Maybe Willie's turning the corner with his bloop single of a touchdown run last week that gets him going. There was Jake Elman wrote about it, and Sun Sentinel wrote about it as well, about him kind of overcoming some things. So we're hoping for the best for him.
It'd be so great to get him going. I mean, he's such. We talk about big plays. I mean, he might have had the biggest play in last time we were up in Bowling Green.
Yeah.
The replay where the Western Kentucky's entire defense thought
it was going to be a run.
It was going to be a run. He was wide open, and he got in the end zone. And we tried the flea flicker last week, which was fine, but man, I just want to see one of those crazy lane trick plays. Like, does he have it this week? Like, I kind of want to see would we see Kendall Briles when we were in a lot of trick plays?
Yeah, we maybe we don't have a wide receiver pass. We don't have a wide receiver who can throw like Cam Solomon. He was kind of the go-to wide receiver who would throw. But yeah, maybe this is the week that they bust out the trick plays.
No, can Tronti play running back? Let's get them both out on the field, right? Like, I mean,
he practically does already. So
yeah, I mean, let's. I would like to see it, because let's also remember the Western Kentucky game in 2017. That's when we had that fake punt call, because that was a close game for a while, and the fake punt call is kind of what started. We scored on that drive, and then it started. Then Willie Wright had the long catch for the touchdown, and then Motor had like a game breaking, which kind of just blew the doors off. Run.
And it was really the fake punt really helped turn that tide of the game. But I think it was the interception midway through the third quarter. I can't remember who did it. I want to say Herb Miller for some reason.
He did have a pick that game. It might
sideline, the jump ball, right?
I don't know if that.
I can't remember. Man.
Andrew Storr and Herb Miller each had interception.
Okay.
So I think Storr's was in the middle of the field.
So then it was definitely Herb Miller's then that turned that game around, because that was the one on the sideline, and then it was just great to see. And that's something that we're gonna have to do again. We're gonna have to create turnovers this time around in Bowling Green to walk out with a victory.
Yeah. Well, like we've been saying, it should be an entertaining game, and hopefully that the good guys can bring it home. We again saying every game is the biggest game of the week. If FAU, or biggest game of the year, if FAU wants to have a chance to win the conference, it starts this week. And then we need a little bit of help, but we'll take it week by week. So, I think this was a pretty good conversation. We hope you guys enjoyed it. As always, we really appreciate you going along with us. Make sure you check us out, iTunes, search for Inside the Burrow, and any other podcasting apps, YouTube, FAU, just look for the FAU Owl's Nest on on YouTube, because that's where it gets posted, and then obviously FAUAllisNest.com for all of the game breakdown, midweek mashup, going to some stats midweek. Those have been fun to read, and certainly the forum conversation that's been going on. So thank you again for joining us, and we will see you guys next week when we break down the Kentucky game. Thanks. Go Owls.